14 WILI and 95.3 FM presents Hometown Threads, a closer look at our community and the people that make it go. Every week, you'll hear uplifting stories from our local businesses and our neighbors. Now, here's our host for Hometown Threads, Keith C. Rice.
Episode 103 of Hometown Threads on WILI 95.3 FM, Willimantic Today Facebook, Spectrum 192. The WILI Radio YouTube channel. Yes, we have a pretty popular YouTube channel, and if you'd like to subscribe, well, please subscribe. You can search for it by going to WILI Radio. Hometown Threads comes your way on the radio before it hits social media every Tuesday at 5:05 to 5:30 on WILI 95.3 FM, and then it makes the rounds on social media, Willimantic Today, the Keith C. Rice Facebook page usually obviously makes our guest page and all that. But we couldn't do the show every week without our good friends from Liberty Bank, Be Community Kind, with 3 great local locations across the street from the radio station at 679 Main Street. And of course, West Main Street, Willimantic and Gateway Commons, and Route 195 in Mansfield. Liberty Bank, Be Community Kind, J. Matt Rupar, if you'd be so kind. Say hello to the fine folks.
Hello.
And of course, big shout out to Tripoli Pro Clean Services. Mark Tripoli sponsors the podcast. So if you want to go to WILI.com, where all our wonderful talk shows are located, you can check out Hometown Threads that way. And Tripoli Pro Clean Services sponsors the podcast. So here we go, episode 103. It's Keith C. Rice, and the pleasure to be joined by, do we say your last name, Jacques?
Yes.
Okay, actually, I didn't ask you before the mics and camera. I just know you as Angie. I know but I just want to make sure it's Angie Jacques from Yono. That's the right way to say your business?
Yep, Yono.
Yogo, right up the street on Church Street, right?
Correct.
Okay, and very nice to have you in here.
Thank you.
Of course, a lot of people around the community know Angie, and I've been dying to get her here on Hometown Threads. And you've been on a bunch of other shows here on WILI, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, a few shows.
Then with Dennis and Susan, I'm sure they've had you. No, was it? No, John Murphy.
I was with definitely with John Murphy. A couple other shows, not necessarily focusing on Yono, but some other town programs.
Sorry, because you're involved with not just running your business Yono, which we'll get into, but you're also, we're talking about not on another radio station, WDNA, but it's the Willimantic Downtown Neighborhood Association.
Correct.
So you're involved with that, and Angie and I and my wife and a bunch of other people were involved with a big event over the weekend. We should just touch on that real quick here. The River Room just opened up, literally 2 doors down from the radio station here at 50 Riverside Drive. Big congrats and best of luck to our friends Chris Beaudry and Danny from Spiral Art Studio. What did you take away from the ribbon cutting and the big event on Saturday night?
It's such a breath of fresh air. They have their finger on the pulse in town. It's so inclusive and diverse, and the turnout, I think, speaks volumes to what's to come for this town.
Yeah, and I had Patty Tewitt on last week. With leading up to the River Room, I knew she's going to be a part of it as well. And her and Lefty did a nice little rendition the other night.
Yeah.
And to hear Patty I quickly turn to Mary and my wife, I go, I said that to her, because it was wrapping up the show with Patty last week at Hometown Threads. I go, is it fair to say, could the River Room be like, I wasn't alive for the Shaboo, but I've heard stories, and everyone's heard stories about it if they weren't part of it. But I turned to Patty, I go, could this be like a mini Shaboo? And she commented, and then I heard her say, I'm like, I said that to her at the end of the show. So I got all excited. And we hope it, it's definitely got that same kind of vibe.
Yeah.
Because you look at Chris Beaudry, and you look at Lefty, and it's like, it almost is like, as they said, passing the torch. So anyway, it's very exciting that the River Room is now part of the downtown community. Very exciting stuff. But Yono is very exciting too. Now, let's learn a little about Angie Jacques. You're not originally from here, but you've been here for a while now. How many years have you been in Eastern Connecticut? Well, Willimantic.
8 years.
Only 8? I thought it was longer than that.
No, 8 years. I purchased in Chaplin. I was in Vermont for a long time, and when I moved back to Connecticut, I talked to my real estate agent, and I said, I want to be in a place that is as close to the Vermont vibe as I could get. And that's just what I started with, and found a house in Chaplin, and made my way into Willimantic, and I immediately was just drawn to this area for many reasons.
So you moved from Vermont to Chaplin, just like you was telling you. What were you doing in Vermont? I know you told us before, but you told us off the air you went to school at Castleton, right?
Yep.
So how many years were you in Vermont before you decided, okay, I want to go back to Connecticut?
Well, I grew up in West Hartford, went to college in Vermont. I was there for about 10 years, not college, just Vermont. I was in college the normal amount of time, 4 years, and then decided to stick around. I just loved it so much. My parents ended up moving to their home in Vermont full time, so it's just always been a big part of my life. The woods and outdoor, skiing and mountain biking, and so when it was time to come back to Connecticut, again, I was just looking for that same kind of vibe. And what was even better is a short stint I lived in Colorado between undergrad and grad school.
Which could be like Vermont too, right?
Right. When I was graduating college, I was like, I just want to go to a bigger Vermont. So I ended up in Colorado for a year. And
why only a year?
My parents made it real clear that they didn't put me through 4 years of college to be a ski bum. So
or follow fish in the Grateful Dead.
Exactly. I made my way back, and no, it was time to come back. I love my family, and I really love New England. I couldn't imagine not living in New England.
Well, like yourself, I spent 6 months in Salt Lake City, so it's almost like Vermont. Except I was out there in 2001 or 2002. Yeah. So yeah, you're right. The friends and family are back east.
Right.
That's what draws you back. So, all right, so you spent a year in Colorado, but what made you just want to pick up and leave? Oh wait, so you went back to Vermont, right? From Colorado?
Yeah,
is that what you said?
just for a little bit. And I remember when I first touched down here in Willimantic, I remember thinking, that ski town vibe really resonated.
That really
with
Willimantic
me.
sent that vibe to you?
And I felt that when I stepped foot in this town. It reminded, it just seemed like everyone knew each other. People were friendly with each other. Businesses were helping each other out. And I remember seeing that when I was in this small town in Colorado and in parts of Vermont. And I hadn't seen that in a lot of places, but it really resonated with me here. And I just knew, I didn't know 100% what I wanted to do or why I wanted to be here. I just knew I had to be here.
Wow, that's cool.
I'm an energy person, and I follow my energy, and this is where I decided to root down.
So is family still in West Hartford?
Nope, parents are in Vermont.
Oh, they're in Vermont.
I have a couple brothers here still in Connecticut, nieces, nephews, but a lot of my friends are still around but they're west of the river, and I decided to come east of the river.
So you're very satisfied here. You feel, would there ever be a chance you'd? We don't want to lose you. Would there be any chance you'd pick up and leave again? I just asked that because I moved around a lot, and moving is.
As of right now, there is nothing on the radar. I'm happy. This is home.
We need you here.
Yeah. I'm very happy to be here.
Great. So, all right. So you're living in Chaplin. You're drawn in by Willimantic, feeling like the whole ski town vibe and all that. Here's one other thing about Willimantic. Was there one specific thing when you first drove into Willimantic that said, wow, or you just felt it? Because you said you're an energy person. Was there one, landmark or in a restaurant or whatever? Was there something?
It was really I think Grounded was the first place I went to.
Shout out to Steve.
Yeah. Oh, they're wonderful there. And that, at the time I was teaching, like many yoga teachers, I was bouncing around to different studios, teaching in different locations, all the way into Farmington and Avon. I was still driving all around the state and maintaining those classes that I had started.
So you're doing yoga back then, too?
I was doing yoga back then, yeah.
Even when you just arrived in Chaplin?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
I was a social worker. I went to college. That's what I went to school for. I was a social worker for about 17 years. I worked with adolescents, reunification programs for youth and families, kids that were in foster care programs.
Wow.
The goal was to reunify them with their parents. And that's when I started to get into yoga a little bit more. At the time, they weren't teaching yoga in schools, at least not in my experience. And I was working with a lot of kids after school that couldn't afford sports or anything like that. So I was just calling it stretching. And then I was like, I really want to do this. And so I applied for the 200-hour certification at Kripalu, and I went to their immersion program, lived there for 30 days, and that's where I started. It's in Lenox, Massachusetts.
Okay.
And so that's kind of like home base for me. Since then, I've received many certifications in various techniques, whether it's meditation or yoga or
So living in Chaplin, this is how you got the ball rolling around here as far as doing the yoga thing.
Yes.
Because you were living, before you got the studio, and we'll get into that, you were living in Chaplin and just traveling around doing yoga.
Yep, traveling around, and then when I came to Main Street, I went to Grounded. They had the back patio, and again, just an idea popped up. I said I wanted to get to know this community, and the best way in my way of doing it is to teach free yoga classes. So I knocked on the door. Steve and Victoria were so kind. They let me put up an A-frame board. I was teaching free yoga. I want to say it was 1 or 2 Saturdays per month. I would put the A-frame on the sidewalk. I would have a couple people show up. It was nice.
This is like 6-7 years ago?
Yeah, this was, 2017.
Wow, okay, so you're doing yoga Grounded a couple times a week.
Yeah, a couple times a month.
A month.
And it was free for the community. And I would have, like I said, a couple people show up, but I was getting to know the vibe, and it was so diverse, people that were showing up. And it wasn't, like I said, not a big crowd, but enough where I was really feeling the energy of the area, and it was...
And how'd you plug it a couple times a month? Because, I'm sure there were flyers up at Grounded or something like that, right?
I just had the A-frame board. I made flyers on Canva. I did everything
I'm
sort
just
of
curious
grassroots.
if people remember to come.
I didn't know what I was doing. I wasn't a
Good for you.
marketing background. I just started doing what I loved. I was talking about it with people. I'm guessing Steve and Victoria were
They probably spread the
telling
word.
people. Yeah. Social media, I'm sure I threw some stuff out on social media.
So it started at Grounded, and now that got the ball rolling. Where did you go from? How long did you do the Grounded thing a couple times a month?
So it was, I'd say, a little less than a year, and then David Wallner approached me, I think, or maybe I was over at Willie Brew, and he said, "Hey, are you the yoga girl?" And I said,
The yoga
yeah.
girl. I could see Dave saying
I
that.
think so.
Are you the beer guy?
Yeah. And they had just purchased the building on North Street, and there was that space, which is now where Willie, the record store is.
Willimantic Records?
Yeah,
Right,
Willimantic
Matthew?
Records.
J-Man Report?
Great building, great room. They said, we have this space, would you be interested? And so that's how it started. I started renting that space. My grandparents are astrologers. I always run things through them before I do anything. So
Really?
I talked to them, and
Wow.
they said, they did my chart, and they said, you have to have your not your grand opening, but your basically where people come in, they see the room, and so you have to have it on this day at this time, and then you have your
Call the
opening.
inspection.
No, it's like where people first come in. Why is this word escaping me? It's where they first come in. People just see the room. I had like
a tour?
snacks. Yeah, it's just like a tour around the
Like an open
space.
house.
Yeah, an open house. There it is. That's the word I was looking for. So had an open house, and then that was like October 21st, and I opened November 1st. And I opened after a couple hundred people showed up for the open house. I opened on November 1st, and 0 people showed up. And I sat in the middle of the room, and I was like, oh my goodness. My mom was with me, and I said, oh my God, what did I do? What did I do? I left, my other gigs that were, I could rely on money, and I put all my life savings into this, and for a moment, I was like, oh my God, what did I do? And then I just sat in the room, and I manifested. I'm a big believer in manifestation. I envisioned the room full of people enjoying each other's company, sipping tea, doing yoga, and that Saturday morning it was a full class. So
That's an incredible story.
yeah.
Wow.
And it's been going great ever since, and the community has grown significantly, and then so that was November 2018, and on March 14th. 2020, I signed a lease for a second studio to run at the same time, where Reframe is.
Yeah.
And then, of course, March 16th, my birthday, I had to close both studios because of COVID. And but silver lining.
How did you? Yeah. Speak a little about the COVID. How'd you navigate through COVID and all that?
It was interesting, of course, for all of us. I learned how to do YouTube videos really fast, and I learned how to use Zoom really fast because I wanted to keep my students engaged and well. So I started doing Zoom pretty much the next day. And
You and like other business owners had to learn on the fly, and that's
fast.
Look at you. That's great.
I learned real fast, and then so.
So when did you see? It's stories like this. What you just told about the open house, how you got through COVID, what you did to get you and your business through COVID. This is why we do Hometown Threads. That's something I get goosebumps when I hear stuff like this. So, how long would you say? You probably had to get an okay through the town, where it was good. You were good to open your doors again, right? Was it like a year and a half?
So we were able to open. So that was March 14th. I had to close, or March 14th is when I signed lease. March 16th, my birthday, I had to close the two businesses. I was able to. I think we were able to open up that year June 22nd, but I waited until July 1st. But the spacing was so unusual. You had to be, because that reframe space was very small. I was anticipating I could fit 12 people pre-COVID, and then with COVID regulations, I could only fit like 4 people.
That's right. I've been in reframe. Nice little.
Yeah, it's great.
Hello to Frano. Yep. Another past guest, but yeah. So reframe. I'm picturing that, and you're right. It's kind of a tight space.
Yeah.
So
we made it happen, and not a lot of people were ready to come out at that point. I had a handful of people. They're all still with me to this day, but I was doing Zoom and classes outside of that smaller space.
And people were you getting a good attendance via Zoom? Or?
Yep. Yeah, Zoom was pretty packed. So
right.
People stuck with me. I'm so grateful for that. They, it just...
You've been rocking and rolling ever
so
since.
Meaningful.
Huh?
Yeah.
This is great. Angie Jacques is with us here at episode 103 of Hometown Threads on WILI. Willimantic today, Spectrum 192, and it's brought to you by Liberty Bank, Be Community Kind. Okay, so now let's talk a little about Yono. In business for, what's the grand total in years again?
So 6 years.
6 years. 6 years and going
7
strong.
Years. Don't make me do math that quickly.
I'm great at putting people on the spot. It happens every week. How about this? Where'd you come up with Yono?
So Yoga on North. It was on North Street.
You see something like YOLO. You only live once. But.
Yoga on North, and a lot of people just started calling it Yono.
I love that. Yeah, Yoga on North.
Yoga on North. They were calling it Yono, and so when I decided, again, going back to energy, I had driven by the building on Church Street hundreds of times at that point. There was no for sale sign in front of it, and one day I was leaving the reframe space. And I just heard something in my head say, ask about me. And I look and
Manifestation again.
I look at the building and I was like, oh gosh, that looks like a project. I don't know if I want to ask about that. But I reached out to my friend, Matt Vertife, and I said, hey, what's going on with that building on Church Street? And a couple days later, he shows up with Dave Mashinsky, Real Estate, and I looked.
A couple days later?
It was a few days later, yeah. And we looked at the building, and I knew I had to be in that neighborhood. We looked at a couple other spaces. I think, no, not including this building, maybe including, I have no idea. There was a building around here, and I said, no, it has to be that building. It has to be that neighborhood.
Sure, don't want to use our lobby? The Frogcaster?
There was a couple other buildings that were really lovely, but again, the draw was to that neighborhood, that building. It had to be that building. And
what's the address again, just in case people...
59 Church Street.
59 Church Street.
So you have the co-op right there. You have Bliss Marketplace. It is such a cool neighborhood. Frano came up with we were trying to get the neighborhood, call it the Notch, Church Street and North Street.
You guys got a nice little click there, you know?
So I think it's a really funky little neighborhood.
You just said that with Bliss, Yono, Reframe.
Yeah.
You got a nice little...
the co-op's right there.
The co-op, I mean,
Great
yeah,
restaurants.
definitely.
Yep.
Do you ever get people calling you Yono instead of Angie? Hey, Angie Yono! I almost called you Angie
more
Yono.
Like yoga person. Are you the yoga person? Or,
Yono!
Yeah.
I love the name.
That's all right. I'd answer. I've been called worse. You know, work as a social worker sometimes.
So let's talk about the business now at 59 Church Street. It's been roughly 6 years. We know where Yono came from. How do you know if somebody? By the way, do I come across as somebody may need yoga? Am I a little intense? Or can you?
Well, it's for everybody.
It's for everyone, yeah.
Yeah.
See, I don't
and
see that. Teach me a little about yoga.
For men and started from the history I understand it was started by men for men, and so yes, and one of my big. I wanted it to appeal to everybody. I think that sometimes people think about yoga and right away they think about athletic, thin, certain, specific ways that people look, and it was always my goal when I started. My teachers know to put the curtains up. I want people to walk by. I want them to look in, no matter what they look like, color, size, capability. I want them to look inside of that window and say, I belong in there. I want to go in there. We've had so many people just, especially in the summertime when I have the doors open, people will pop their head in and what is this place? And
that's great.
Yeah, it's been great. So, to take you through the day, you had started asking that.
Yeah.
I wake up, I head there, and I clean toilets. If you want to own your own business, you better plan on doing all of it.
That's how you start your day. Well, we may run a little over here, but so are you? Kick off the cleaning toilets part.
Clean toilets.
Besides cleaning toilets, what is an average day at Yono, and how many classes? Are there classes every day?
Yeah.
How many people are in the classes? And then tell us how you can sign up. And I know there's some stuff you want to hit about
There
Yono.
are classes 365 days out of the year. There are classes every holiday. There's 2 to 3 classes per day geared for all levels. There are a few classes that you should have a background, like they say level 3, and there's a description on all these classes, but anywhere from restorative yoga, gentle yoga, to yin yoga, which is a style of yoga that gets into the connective tissue of the body where the deep-rooted tension is, all the way to vinyasa classes that are flowing and a lot of movement with breath. So there's a variety. I have 6 teachers now who help me, thank goodness. So people aren't just stuck with me all the time. And
well, it gives you opportunity to clean more toilets, too.
Yeah, clean more toilets. I'm also the yoga teacher for the majority of the Yukon sports teams.
No
it gives me
kidding.
the opportunity to head up to campus and teach the sports teams. And so that's been such a gift to be able to do something like that.
So you're really branching out.
Yeah, it's great.
So classes every day. What are the hours usually? Give us a website or how people can get in contact to sign up or whatever.
Yep. The website is yonowillimantic.com. There is, if you're a new student, there's a tab that says New Student, takes you through. It's a quick profile setup. And most people start with the 30 days for $40. You can come to as many classes as you want on the weekly schedule. Even multiple classes a day to get a real feel for what our offerings are. So that's typically what people do first, and then they decide from there what makes the most sense for their budget, what makes the most sense for their schedule. If they want to do an unlimited pass, I do have a Willimantic local pass, so it's $70.
About that. Now, is all this information at yonowillimantic.com?
Yes, it's all on the website.
yonowillimantic.com.
And the business number is my cell phone, so it's really important to me that you get me directly. So when you call, when you text, you always get me directly. That's
great. And 6 teachers. Do you want to give a shout out to any of your staff? Then I know you some stuff you
they're
want to put.
Incredible. I'm so lucky. I have such a diverse staff. Great energy. Whenever I bring a teacher in, my biggest goals are making sure they honor the roots of yoga, where it came from, and also make it approachable, accessible, affordable, fun.
All right, so just a couple more minutes. I apologize to Ernie in the neighborhood. We don't run over as we do a lot here on Hometown Threads on WILI.
I'm honored.
But Angie, and you do so much around the community, and we're so thankful that you're part of our community. You've been for 8 years or so. Tell us some of the stuff you got going on at Yono.
So this year is our first year. Shelley Ulm spearheaded getting Yono on the map for Yoga International Alliance. So we are now officially a yoga teacher training school in addition to a yoga studio.
Moving on up.
We have 11 students in our program currently scheduled to graduate in June with their 200-hour certification to teach yoga. So we're really excited about this. It was a dream, and Shelley just took it to the finish line, which I'm super grateful for. And of course, Quiet Corner Float came along. This is a whole other aspect.
Tell us quickly a little bit what
Quiet Corner Float.
I meant to bring this up.
Float therapy. So in side 2, you'll see side 1, side 2. Float therapy has been life-changing for me. It's sensory reduction. All day long we are exposed to all sorts of sensory input. So float therapy is a nice way of decompressing, getting your nervous system balanced out. So again, it's just a continuum of care. We also have Hopewell Massage. This is a all-women-owned business. They rent 2 spaces, 2 rooms in the studio for massage therapy. They're fantastic, and they have everything from gentle to deep tissue and Thai massage, etc.
It's amazing. You just keep going and going.
Yeah, it's really exciting.
So this is Yono's been taken off, and again, YonoWillimantic.com for more information. Is there anything else you want to pass along? Because
Mother's Day her way. We have a special. It was our biggest seller last year. Mom might not want a mug this year, but she does want 60 minutes of silence. So keep that in mind when you're looking for Mother's Day gifts. It's on the website, YonoWillimantic.com. You can click, and she gets 30-minute sauna followed by a 60-minute float therapy session.
That's great. That's a lot of good. You come up with all that stuff. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Keep up the great work.
Thank you so much.
Angie, Jacques.
My hands are frozen.
It's all right. It's part of the yoga thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's November through April, end of April, my hands are always cold.
Oh, that's great. Angie, Jacques, our guest for episode 103 of Hometown Threads on WILI, Willimantic Today Facebook, Spectrum 192. Again, YonoWillimantic.com, especially if you are having trouble coming up with a kind of a creative, unique gift for mom, or just other things in general, and your number's on there as well, right?
Yes, yep, cell phone is on there.
YonoWillimantic.com. That'll do it for episode 103 of Hometown Threads, brought to you by Liberty Bank, Be Community Kind. Thank you to J. Matt Rupar. Thank you to Willimantic Today. And in the words of the great Roddy McCumber.
Bye for now, folks. Bye for now.
And that concludes another edition of Hometown Threads. Got a story for Keith? Reach out to him on Facebook by searching Keith C. Rice, or email him at krice@hallradio.net. Don't forget to tune in next week on 14 WILI and 95.3 FM, as well as the Willimantic Today page on Facebook.